Welcome back to McCann Dogs. Now, I see that one of our channel moderators, Dan or Ellen Luton, has mentioned that they wish a happy Thanksgiving to all of our American viewers, and I want to wish you guys the same. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm a little jealous. I love Thanksgiving. I love Christmas. Those times of year are really, really awesome, and I enjoy every minute of those. So I want to wish all of our American viewers a very happy Thanksgiving. Explicit, throwing up the devil horns. I mean, it's pretty close to the train station, but it's not, it's not quite. But I want to thank you guys for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about some puppy training basics and a really important topic. All about how much freedom should your puppy get. This is something that we talk about a lot on a lot of different videos. It's certainly something that I answer a lot of questions about in the comment section, for sure, about our puppy potty training videos. I talk about it a lot there. But I think it's, it's something that everyone should really be aware of, and not just for puppies. It's certainly one of the puppy training basics that you need to know. Joining me is my co-host.
Hello.
And arguably my better half, Miss Kale McCann. Now, today's live stream is going, any super chat donations, if you decide you want to drop a super chat donation, is going to the Los Angeles County Animal Care Foundation. Now, we know there have been some incredible wildfires going on in California. We have lots of friends, some YouTube friends that have been affected, and we feel pretty bad about the situation out there. It's pretty tragic. And so any super chat donations that come in today are going to go to the Los Angeles County Animal Care Foundation. For those of you who don't know, for 20 years I've been a firefighter, and I know the impact it can have on a family, some of these unexpected costs and things. Certainly the animals that are affected. I mean, I've seen some situations with, how the Animal Care Foundation has been overwhelmed by the influx of dogs and cats and things coming into the shelters. So if you are in the U.S., I think you can drop a super chat because it is a nonprofit charity. But if you're in Canada, I dropped a link in the description below that you can check out and make your donation there. But with no further ado, our pre-show has ended. It was a quick pre-show, but it was short and sweet. We're going to say hello to everyone, but first, we're going to jump off. We're going to talk about some puppy training basics today, and we are going to make sure that we focus on how much time your puppy should be left out of their crate. So, with that said, I'm Ken Steep.
I'm been talking a lot today,
live.
Apparently.
We're live.
I'm Kale McCann.
And welcome back to McCann Dogs. Kale's had a busy day of teaching, working at the McCann Dogs office.
Yeah.
So for anybody that might be new here, if you're brand new to our train station or you're brand new to the channel, I'm Ken Steep. I'm a professional dog trainer. This is a 21-time world champion of dog agility, Kale McCann, also a professional dog trainer. At McCann Dogs, we help over 500 dogs every single week to be well-behaved four-legged family members. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that we can help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member. Now, we need to say hi, big hello to Explicit, P Gaming, wishes everyone a big Thanksgiving. Daryl, PO32007, a common train station viewer, also an in-class student. Same with our moderators, Dan and Ellen Luton. They said, wish a big happy Thanksgiving to all of our American friends. And if you're watching in the U.S., are you sitting down right now? Is this post-Thanksgiving dinner where you put your feet up and just digest? I love that part of Thanksgiving.
I feel like you should just automatically nap.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I know there's a lot of discussion every Thanksgiving about the tryptophan or whatever in the turkey, but I think it's been debunked. I think it's just all of the carbs that you consume.
Yeah, and so quickly.
Oh yeah, but it's
or
so
the fact,
good.
I don't know if other people do this, but I starve myself all day so that I can eat as much as I possibly can, which is not really smart because then your stomach gets smaller.
I know, but it's so good and so worth it. It's totally worth it. Also saying hello to, who else have we got here? Melissa Salt. Yeah, welcome Melissa. Melissa and Madison Winters. Hello, Madison. Welcome to the train station. Now, if you are new to the train station, type new in the chat, just so we know that we have some new viewers. Maybe we can bring you up to speed as to what we've talked about in other episodes. But, and if you're new, I definitely need to show you this bumper that I created. Now, it took me ages to get the dogs to sit and wait for this shot. Took me forever, but I don't want anybody to miss out. So welcome to the train station. Now, I say that tongue in cheek, but I honestly think that my favorite part of the train station is blowing my train whistle.
It's my least favorite part.
I know it is. So I'm just going to drop a big welcome to the train station. So today I see Isabella Paul is new, and welcome, Isabella. We have lots of, today we're going to be talking about some puppy training basics. So if you have puppy training questions, drop them in the chat, and we'll take a couple of breaks over the course content, and we'll talk about, the challenges that you might be having. But a common challenge that we know people have, Kale, is knowing how much freedom to give their puppy. Like how much freedom should someone's puppy get? And it's sort of a sliding scale.
I think we should almost even talk about like what freedom is. Because I think sometimes people give their, like if I ask questions and say, oh, how much freedom are they giving? And they'll say, oh, not very much. And then they'll like proceed to like tell me about their day. And I go, well, that's actually a lot more freedom than what I would do. So
for sure.
So freedom, basically what we're referring to is your dog's ability or puppy's ability. This actually could be for dogs or puppies.
Yeah.
Their ability to make their own decisions and make their own rewards or find their own rewards throughout the day. And if your dog is being given a lot of opportunity to make their own choices and to find their own fun and to self-reward, it often can lead to the dog having bad behavior, because there are very few dogs on this planet that are born just like knowing exactly what to do at all times.
Right. They're
curious little animals, and they get into mischief, not because they're bad or stubborn. It's because that's their dogs, and that's just what happens. Or how many opportunities is your dog getting throughout the day where they're just learning to self-reward, and they're learning that life is totally fine and enjoyable without really needing you to be a part of those things. So that's sort of what we mean by freedom, and often controlling that, which we're going to talk about today, can really change your relationship with your dog for the better. And it also can set your dog up to have more successes in a day, so that you're focusing more on reinforcement in a positive manner rather than getting frustrated or angry with the dog or having to discipline the dog. So that's sort of the root of that, what we mean by freedom.
Yeah, I think sort of like the overarching premise that's really important for you guys to remember, for you to remember at home with your young dog in training or your puppy, is that dogs are always learning. Always learning. So whether you are intentionally teaching them something or they're off on their own, discovering the world, learning, how to interact with things and, having these experiences, they're always learning. So you need to always keep that in mind.
Yes.
Go ahead. I think you had something to say there. I can hear you.
I was just going to say, I don't know. I don't actually know what I was going to say.
That's okay. That's all right. I can hear. So what I was wondering, I think maybe we should do every week is when our train station viewers pop by, maybe they get to vote. Like who gets to be free? We have one dog free. What do you think of that?
Like for the session?
Yeah, they just that dog gets to come and hang out. I thought that'd be fun. And maybe fun for you guys, and maybe get to see if you've been a viewer.
I can hear that Hippie or Funky wants it to be her.
I know, I can tell.
Because she really wants me to take the collar I have on her off of her.
I can hear that for sure. And that's sort of what reminded me of it. But if you guys have a favorite dog in the videos, let us know, and that maybe we'll bring that dog out, and they can get to hang out for the train station with you. Now I see Stringman1950 says, I'm a newbie, but I enjoy your videos. They're very helpful. Well, we're glad to have you here, Stringman. And I'm glad that we're able to help you out. It's so amazing when we get to help all of the students that come into classes every single week. And occasionally, like last night, for example, I popped by the hall. We had had a video to shoot that you guys will see on Monday. But I get to talk to some people who come up to me and they say, hey, thank you. We love your videos. They're so helpful. And we love having that opportunity because to give you just a brief backstory. You know, long before I was a dog trainer, when I was a kid, we raised and trained working dogs. We never had pet dogs. But when I had my own first pet dog, I made all the mistakes. I made all the time management mistakes with my dog, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. But you know, I went to my vet, and my vet said go to McCann Dog Trainers, and I did that. And long story short, now I'm sitting in front of you with this amazing blue shirt. But you know, I loved it. Really, some of these like little key elements and the things that I talk about in our videos on the channel are things that I wish I knew. So, you know, make sure you're checking out those videos and that you know, really take to heart some of the things that we're talking about. Explicit says, give us another toot of the horn. And that's a common mistake, but it's actually my train whistle, but I appreciate the intention there, and I will. Welcome back to the train station. So, I see Maddie Winters says it's hard to pick favorites, but I feel I might be too biased with my voting. Okay, we'll.
I know how you feel, Maddie.
We'll let some of the chat roll in, and then we'll talk. We'll grab one of the dogs. But let's talk about that brand new puppy, 8 to like 12 weeks old, and talk about how we're going to manage that puppy in terms of how much freedom that puppy should get, Cal.
Yeah, so you want to think about, you know, a puppy or even a young dog up to like 7 or 8 months old sometimes, maybe more. Treat them as if you would, you know, a baby or a toddler. You know, it would never happen, hopefully, that you would have, you know, a young baby and you would just, you know, leave them down on the floor in a room and just, you know, walk away for a little while and start typing on your computer or start making dinner and not be paying attention. And a lot of people just sort of, I think they think that the dogs just kind of will figure out what to do. And, you know, we talk about the importance of supervision all of the time. And really what we truly mean by that is literally watching your dog, like 2 eyeballs watching the dog, rather than like just being in the same room, but yet you're typing away or watching TV and you don't realize that the dog's been gnawing on the couch for 5 minutes and now you've missed your opportunity to, you know, address it with good timing. So, when they're baby puppies, when they're really young, I think that the problem is that sometimes the puppies at that age sometimes they can be pretty good because they don't have any experience yet. So point. I know some puppies, like we've had some puppies that like naturally just follow us around and they kind of respond to our voice because they're, you know, they're eager and they're new and they don't really feel super confident like running the show themselves because they're in a new place.
And that is the best. Like when you just walk around the house and this tiny little fluff ball follows you around staring up at door.
And then you almost notice that exact moment where the dog's like, huh, I'm 12 weeks old now.
Right.
I don't need you anymore.
Yeah, I'm quite confident. I know this
What does this do? What does this do? How does this taste?
Yeah.
And can I pee here? Can I poo here? And so they start to get like a little bit curious, and then that's where the fun really starts because the dogs start to investigate and they start to figure out, okay, like what are my rules in this house? Who in this house do I respect? Is it the other people? Is it the mom? Is it the dad? Is it the kids? Is it the other dogs in the house? And like they have to figure out where they are in the pecking order, just like they did when they were a puppy in their litter with their mom. They would have learned very quickly that mama was in charge. And then usually what happens is if there's a litter of puppies, they will also figure out like where they fit in with their brothers and their sisters as well.
And just to preface, just to sort of gives people some context, like you have whelped many litters of puppies,
like over 20.
Yeah, many litters of puppies. Maybe. So you've seen this process go over and over again.
Absolutely. You definitely see how the whole pecking order works, and I can tell you for a fact that just because a puppy is one way in the litter does not mean it's going to go home with a family and behave the same way. And it sort of makes me laugh when Breeder says, oh, this is the really dominant one, or this is the really docile one. And then the family brings it in and say, this dog's supposed to be really docile, and the dog's being a little bit pushy because dogs aren't stupid. They really size each individual person up to sort of see, you know, what kind of person are you? Are you a leader? Are you a natural leader type person? Or are you a little bit wishy-washy? Or are you a little bit soft with the dog? And so they sort of go, I can kind of push you around a little bit. So they will figure that out. But as I was mentioning before, as the dogs start to get a little bit older, you're going to really start to see them change. And that is when it's the most important stage to be controlling their freedom.
Right.
And there's a bunch of different ways that you can do that with success.
Yeah. And I think back to Deegan in my case. Deegan was the runt of the litter. That's one of the reasons why and my dad had a unique way of picking puppies, and he looked at her and he thought, there's there's lots of dog here. And I remember not really understanding what that meant at the time, but being the runt of the litter, I thought, oh, she's just little. She'll be like forever, reserved and
She
cute.
actually still is little, but she is not reserved.
No.
She is now, but she's old.
Right, yeah, for sure.
But when she was younger, she was not.
She was younger, she was full of energy and very confident in all these things. So, and again, it was some of the mistakes that I made with my time management, with her, having freedom.
What are like the top 3 things you think that you wish you would have done differently?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first one would be her interaction with my other dog, with my other lab. She had way too much access to the other lab.
Literally had a conversation with a student today about that exact topic.
It's so important, and not just for the building a relationship or building that work drive in your dog or that like desire to listen. Also for the other dog. I had to take my older lab to the hospital because she developed an ulcer. Because Deegan was so annoying.
Is so sad.
I know. Well, and this is where I started to have these realizations that I needed to give her guidance and give her direction. And all of the things that I tell you to do on our YouTube videos are the things that, after my apprenticeship and many years of training, are the things that I realized those are the mistakes that I made. These are the things that I should have been doing. Mm-hmm. So, that made a big difference. And it really, it made it harder for me to get Deegan to want to learn, to want to listen, because she just had free run of the house.
Yeah. Most people just don't really realize that that's the wrong thing to do. I'll never forget years ago, I went to a friend's house for dinner and they had other family also coming to the dinner. And they had just picked up a new puppy earlier in that week and they had brought the puppy to the house and they said like, oh, Kale's coming, like bring the puppy, it'll be great. So we sit down for dinner and this puppy doesn't have a leash on and it is running wild around the house and it's like nipping at the kids' pant legs. Yeah. It's like jumping up on the table, like trying to get onto where the food is. And I was like trying not to be in dog trainer mode, but I had to talk to them about putting the dog on the leash, maybe considering a crate. There was all kinds of things, but they literally, when I was telling them these things, it was they were like, oh wow, I didn't know you could do that with the dog. I just thought you let it figure it out. And it sort of dawned on me how many things that are just natural for us and that we take for granted, and why it's so important to talk about these types of things, because sometimes you just don't really know what's okay to do or what you should be doing. And I think when we say control freedom, a lot of people automatically go, well, I don't want my dog to spend a lot of time in the crate, or I don't want them to have to be on leash all the time. I want them to let them be a dog. I want to let them, let their hair down a little bit. And we completely agree with all of those things. But in time, and once your dog is ready for those types of freedoms, one of the best ways that you can actually reward your dog is by giving them more freedom. So if we have a young dog and we're starting to see that the dog's becoming more responsive, they're not chewing things very much, they're house trained, they're asking us to go outside, they're listening well to their name, they stay when we tell them, those types of things, then we'll start to give them a little bit more freedom and maybe let them have a little bit more free time in the house, or let them cruise to more areas in the house that we might not be at the exact same time. But we do it very gradually and we do it slowly, and it's based exactly on that particular dog. Mm-hmm. So we've had some dogs where the freedom has come very quickly because there hasn't been, like Beeline, for example. Yeah. We gave her freedom quite early, but we were lucky. She was just a really, really nice puppy, really good puppy. Rod took a little bit longer. Remember, he had some house training issues initially when he was a baby. But he was also, we weren't living together, so he was at your house and then my house and your house. So anyways, long story short, he just took a little bit longer to figure it out. He's not a bad dog and or anything like that. It was just information needed to be delivered to him differently, and now he's wonderful. Yeah, just to interrupt for a second, let us know in the chat, are you using a crate at home? Are you using limited space for your dog for one reason, or for your training, or even if they're an older dog, let us know. Are you using a crate? Because I'll tell you, it is, there's a great question that just came in, but I'll tell you that it is such a valuable tool. And for me, when I
brought that black lab of Deegan, that black lab of mine, when I introduced to crate, she was older and it was a real struggle for me, but I learned some of the some of the videos that you see on our channel all about crate training are things that I'd have to do with Deegan through Deb McCann, Kale's mom's direction. She would give me all these ideas to, you know, make Deegan more comfortable in the crate. But I immediately, after Deegan was in a position where she was comfortable in the crate, I could put her somewhere when I wasn't able to supervise her. She right away started to see value in coming out and playing with me and working with me and doing stuff with me. And I found that so valuable. And it really was a great way to have some supervision when I wasn't able to supervise her so that she couldn't get into trouble. So let's see. I see a couple great questions coming in. So let's touch on the first one. So Dan and Ellen say, is indoor freedom the same as outdoor freedom?
That's a great question. Fabulous question. Yeah. And absolutely, for sure. I find that sometimes even when you give your dog a lot of freedom outdoors, maybe without you being involved, it's very self-rewarding because there's like outside's tons of fun. There's lots of things to dig and chew and chase and get into. And if you're giving them a lot of off-leash or outside freedom without you, some dogs can develop barking issues. Your recall, your come command can go out the tubes really quickly. They can get into digging and things like that. So to answer your question, yes. So what we do to manage the dog outside, because we obviously want them to go outside and have some fun, is when they're babies, we'll go outside with them and we'll often attach a really, really long line. So I'm talking like we have a fairly decent sized yard. So we have about a 20-foot long, it's sort of like a lunge line almost, but it's like a long cotton web. And the puppy initially, when they're first learning, we would keep it in our hand for safety. But once the dog has a little bit of skills where they can respond to their name and maybe they have a few little verbal commands under their belt, we would just let them drag that line around. And we would only use it if we needed to. So if they started to dig or started to bark at people walking, past our driveway, then we could address the dog if they weren't listening. We just have a bit of a backup. And then when we're inside and we're controlling the freedom, we would take the long line off because that would be a pain, of course. And we would put a leash on instead, or if you have a really young puppy, you could even use like a long piece of rope. And what we usually do is cut the handle off or cut the loop out so that it doesn't get caught on things. And it still does get caught on things. I'm not gonna lie there. It is a bit of a pain in the butt, but it's a pain in the butt like 5% of the time, and it's like a lifesaver 95% of the time. So it like outweighs the annoying parts. But that's sort of what we do with our leashes. And again, we're not pulling and dragging the dogs around. We're enhancing our verbal control, but the line and the leash is there to back up if we ask our dogs to listen to us and they choose not to, which they will do when they're young and adolescent.
Because they're learning.
They're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And if this is all new information to you, I posted a card in the top right-hand corner of the screen that you can click in. I have a video specifically about using this house line, and I think Kale's touched on some of the really important points. So even after the video, definitely go check those out. I'd love to jump into the chat here, though. I saw there's lots of great questions coming in, so we're going to answer some of those. First, we're going to say Melissa Salt mentions that my Doxy's got freedom very quickly. Stormy is taking longer, and that's sometimes the case. It's so dog dependent that you can't nail it down to an age. You can't nail it down to a breed. It's every dog is different, and you sort of have to treat them as such. So Isabella Paul says, can you crate train a pug? I'm having a hard time potty training my 5-month-old pug. She's in a playpen when I can't supervise her at night. She always pees and poops there, always. So we have several potty training videos on the channel, Isabella, but I'll tell you right now, especially with a pug that's so little, if she's got a playpen and there's too much room, she's feeling that there's way too much area for her to go in a corner and have an accident and then go snuggle back into bed and not have to worry about it. So limiting her space is going to be really helpful at this stage of your potty training. You really need her to sort of feel like she has to hold it. You're not going to leave her there. Maybe if she's continuously having accidents overnight, you're not going to leave her there the first night, the whole night, in this smaller space. You're going to have to
and what he means by smaller space is you need to get rid of the pen and you need to get a crate.
Yeah.
Don't get rid of the pen. You can still use the pen.
Sure.
But the puppy should be sleeping in a crate and should be spending time in a crate when you're not paying attention. The pen is what I would use if you could also supervise the puppy. I wouldn't leave a puppy in the pen unsupervised.
Right. Totally. Yeah. But your pug just feels like she's got a little bit too much freedom and she's able to have these accents.
But he's right. You don't want to leave her all or him overnight like the first time, because that might be too overwhelming. You might have to take the puppy out if they're whining initially. And then eventually you need to say, okay, now you got to hold it the whole night. But it absolutely, you can crate train any dog. It doesn't matter the breed, the size. Every single dog can be crate trained if it's introduced properly.
Yeah, if you give the dog the right information. Again, okay, I just want to see what we've got going on here. Yeah, let's crate using this one.
Yep.
Okay. So Dan and Ellen Luton say, we're using a plastic crate. We much prefer it over our previous wire crate.
Yeah, I would have to agree that would be the most common thing that we see within our students. I actually see it in our own dogs. I actually took Beeline to work today. We're really lucky, obviously, being a dog trainer. I get to take my dogs to work, and it was rare for me. I left all of the dogs home, and I only took Beeline with me today, which is a bit strange. Yeah. But when I took her to work, I put her in a wire crate, and somebody came in and said, Bee looks really sad. She's sitting in the back of the crate with her nose against the wall, and she looks like really sort of stressed. And so I went back, and sure enough, she was like a little bit unsettled. So I moved her from the wire crate into the plastic crate that I have. I also have another one there. And right away, they said her attitude instantly changed, because she felt, I think she felt like more like a den, a little safer. Her bed was in there. And so I know for sure my dogs prefer the plastic crate over the wire crate, but it's not to say that the wires aren't good as well. But if you're wanting to invest in one, you may want to choose the plastic one.
Yeah. P. Gammon mentions, how often should our boxer, 4 months old, be in the crate? And this is probably the most common question, like how much time can my dog spend in the crate? And it is, it revolves around the idea that when your dog is out of the crate, that they're doing something of quality. So that every time your dog's out of the crate, you're training them, you're working with them, you're engaging with them. At 4 months old, at 16 weeks, like your dog should, if you're not doing something with them or they're doing something with you, then your dog and you aren't able to supervise them, then they should probably be in their crate.
They could be in their crate anywhere up to 20 hours in a day, but obviously never all at the same time.
Yeah.
But we believe that it's a better idea to interact and train and play with the dog several times a day for short periods of time than it is to have long extended periods in the crate and long extended periods out of the crate.
For sure.
Because that's where bad things can happen on both sides. So what we tend to do is our puppies sleep in a crate overnight, and when we get up in the morning, we'll take the puppy outside for a pee. We'll bring the puppy in, and instead of just putting the food down, I actually use my puppy's food quite often to do some training. So I'll spend 10, 15 minutes doing some different exercises with the dog, doing some training, and then I'll take the puppy out again for a bathroom break, and then I might play with them a little bit when I come back in, and then I might put them in their crate, and then I'll go to work, and then let them out at lunch, or depending on their age, and then I'll do the same thing when I get home, and then we'll put the puppy away and we'll have dinner, and then after dinner we'll get the puppy back out again, and then we'll put the puppy away, and then before bed we'll get the puppy back out again, and then they'll go to bed for the night, and we just rinse and repeat every single day until the dog's training becomes good enough that we can control our dog. So our dogs now, most of the dogs don't spend time in their crates, but if they're in our hair, we can say, hey, go on your bed, go and lie down. And they just go and they lie there and they stay there for long times. So we don't have to crate them, but they have training. But when they're puppies, they don't have that training to be able to do that. So don't feel guilty about long periods of time in the crate. It is absolutely quality over quantity.
For sure. And I think if that sounds like, oh boy, that's a lot of work, it's because it is.
Yeah. If you're getting a puppy, you better be signing yourself up for lots of work.
For sure. and it's all about, if your puppy's your boxer's 4 months old, probably had him or her for like 6 to 8 weeks, you'll know that there's not a lot of gas in the tank at this point for these dogs. You can get them out and do, an activity, play with them or hang out with them, do something fun, and then they're tired. They're ready to have a snooze. So, the best place for that is to put them in their crate so that you're starting to associate that crate with somewhere that's really comfortable and warm and relaxing. So really take advantage of your crate. As often as you can. Just before you go to the next comment, So right now we have a dog that's got a bit of a gastric issue. He's got an upset stomach, and it would be challenging if he had, so he's nausea, vomiting, diarrhea sort of thing. It would be really challenging if he didn't like going in his crate, if his crate stressed or a crate stressed him out. It's so valuable for him to know that he loves being in his crate, and we can put him in there so that if he has an accident or, you know, if he feels unwell, he can put himself in there. Like, it's just so important to be able to have somewhere safe and that he can be relaxed. That's one of the real benefits of using the crate.
Yeah, I was actually I had him at the vet the other day, and we were talking about the value of crate training. And I had mentioned to the vet how stressful it can be for dogs to go to a vet and have to be crated there. If they've never been crated before, they're not used to it. Not only are dogs stressy at the vet, but then they have to go in a crate when they get there. Or if you board your dog ever, they have to be crated. So, you know, it is absolutely in your best interest to take some time to make sure that that's something that your dog can do.
Yeah. So this is a great question from Daryl PO32007. He says, yes, we have a crate. We actually have 3 crates because we don't like to move them. And that's a pretty good hack for those of you who are, maybe you're watching the stream because you're getting a puppy or you're thinking about getting a puppy or you've just got a new puppy. Get a couple of crates. Go on Kijiji or eBay or somewhere inexpensive and get
They're really
a second
easy to get
crate.
Secondhand.
Yeah, for sure, especially puppy crates. And grab yourself another crate so that you don't have to lug the crate all over, because we talk about this in our crate training video.
How many crates do you think that we have?
Oh, I don't know. It's in the double digits for sure. It's like maybe 18 or 20.
Oh, yeah.
Probably. We're crazy.
We probably shouldn't
We're
even
crazy
tell you
dog
because
people.
you're going to be like, oh my God.
When did we become crazy
We have
dog
multiple
people?
crates in our trailer. We have multiple crates in our van. We have multiple crates in our house. And we have multiple crates at work.
I know, yeah.
And at our parents' house.
Yeah, yeah. But that's just the way it is because we know we want to be able to take the
And
dogs
we
there
also
and
don't like lugging our crates
comfortably.
around.
Yeah, for sure. Which where do you want to go next? Yeah, for sure.
We can just say this is about the leash again, but maybe they weren't here when we talked about it.
So Lindy Smith mentions, hi, I'm new here. I follow you always. My dog is crate trained, but when he's out, he likes to run around the house. How do I make him listen and to stay in one place? So that's sort of a multi-tiered question, but certainly Kale talked about using a house line or a leash that, there's a video on the channel that is linked above if you want to check it out. But having a leash on your dog when they're in the house, so that you can have a little bit of control of them if they start to make a bad decision. Actually, a story that we heard from a student was she was getting her pills out for the morning, and her puppy was meandering about the kitchen, and she dropped the pill. And because she had a line on the dog, she had the house line on the dog, or which is just a leash, with the loop cut off. Her puppy made a beeline for the pill, and she was able to step on that line. So it's a real safety issue, but there's all sorts of things you can do to have your dog want to listen to you, but being sure that they're safe and supervised well is the most important thing, Lindy, and using that house line is going to be really helpful. Check out our video on teaching your dog to go lie on their bed. That'll be a great one.
Thinking that,
yeah, that'll be a great one for you, and then you can ask your puppy to go lie down on their bed, and they can rest there, and they're rewarded by it. Go ahead. So Daryl asks, we recently started allowing our dog to have sleeps on her bed when we're home. I hope that's okay. What do you think about the dogs in the bed?
On her bed or on your bed? I think it was on her bed. We recently started allowing our dog to have sleeps on her bed when we are home. Yeah, if it's on her bed, that's absolutely okay. I won't lie, our dogs are allowed on our bed, but we don't usually let them on the bed a lot when they're baby puppies or when they're really young. We make sure that they're like house trained and that they listen and they're not having any nipping or biting or any like disrespectful types of behaviors, because getting up on the bed and being at the same level of you is quite a luxury for a dog. It's quite a invitation to be on the same playing field. So we typically don't open that opportunity up to the dog unless we feel that they're ready for that type of allowance. But if they're learning just to go and lie down on their bed and have a little snooze, then that's fabulous. We have dog beds all over our house, and our dogs tend to plop down on them and sleep, if we're working in the office or wherever it might be. And I think that's a great thing for the dogs to learn.
I think this is important for me to jump in here. So don't mistake the act of putting your dog in a crate specifically for the act of supervising your dog. What's important about having your dog be in their crate is that they can't get into trouble, that they don't require supervision. That's the most important part of using the crate. It has nothing to do with the actual act of a dog being in their crate. All of the things that we're talking about, like the benefits of being in their, being comfortable in their crate, are very valuable. But right now, especially when you have a young puppy, it's really important that the them going in the crate means that you can go about your normal daily life. You can take care of things, and you don't have to be watching over them, so that that puppy isn't making bad decisions, making bad choices. That's what's really important here. So if your puppy will go and lie on her bed, and you know where she is, and you can keep your eyes on her relatively closely, and you know that she's doesn't require supervision, that's totally okay.
Yeah, the other thing that we want to do too is when we have puppies, we want them to learn that when they are loose in the house and they're free and they're not in their crate, we're either training or we're playing or we're doing stuff for sure. Or sometimes I want my dog just to learn to chill out, because dogs need to learn to have an off button. So if I'm, we want to sit down for the night and, watch TV and relax, I'll decide, do I literally want to relax, and then I'll put the puppy in the crate and I can just, veg out. Or what I might do is sometimes I'll pull a dog bed over to the couch and I'll put it down at my feet. I'll put the house line under my foot, and I'll get a bone, or I'll get a Kong, or I'll get something that's safe for my puppy to chew. And sometimes I just sit on the floor with them,
Yeah.
And I just let them chew on the bone, and I'll watch TV, and I just sort of encourage the dog just to kind of chill out with me and not be running all over the house and like being crazy. Just learn to kind of be with us and hang out and be calm and be relaxed, because it's not always about like playing and training and doing all these crazy things. That's, a good part of the day, but also creating a bit of an off button, because, when we have our dogs in the house, most people can't believe that we have border collies, and we don't even know where they are sometimes, because they're like sleeping underneath the office desk, or they're like rugs basically, until you're like, hey, you want to play ball? And boom, then they're up. But it's because we encourage them from the get-go to learn to have an off button and like chillax, so that it's not just like high strung all the time.
Really great question coming in. And I apologize for if I butcher your name, but I believe it's Kamar Yasin asks a really good question. So he asks, do you guys mean that my puppy should be totally dependent on me?
It's a great question.
It is a great question. And I think this is sort of the misconception.
Yeah.
In
the answer
dog
is
training
yes
in general,
and no.
Talking about dog training in general, we want our puppy to look to us for information, but we want to instill the confidence that they aren't dependent on us. So do you want to talk a little bit about how that is yes and no when you talk about that? Do you want the puppy to be totally dependent on you?
Yeah. So initially I do want the puppy to be quite dependent on me, but I also need to teach the puppy that they can learn to, sometimes they can entertain themselves, so that I'm not having to be at the dog's beck and call every 2 seconds. I also want to be careful that I'm not creating separation anxiety by teaching the dog to be so attached to me that they can't do anything on their own. But the type of freedom that we suggest that you're giving your dog is not one where they're being allowed to go and make poor choices.
Right.
So if I'm going to give my dog some freedom just to kind of do their own thing, I'm going to do kind of what I just suggested. I might give them, a safe toy to play with that they can go and lie down and chew for a little bit, or just give them those types of things so they can go and entertain themselves, but I'm aware of where they are and I sort of keeping my eye on them. And then sometimes if they're kind of doing their own thing, then I might go and interrupt them and then see if I can get them to do something with me for a moment. I might do a sit or a down or a trick and then say, good puppy, okay, go get your bone, go lie down, and I'll just encourage them to go back and do their own thing, so I can flip-flop between the two things. But my ultimate goal is that my dog understands the rules of the house and the rules of like what our expectations are of them, that they are responsible enough that I don't have to be micromanaging them all the time. They need to have their own responsibilities, but I need to shape them initially so that they're not learning the wrong things.
For sure. I'm going to pop back to our moderator, Dan and Ellen Luton. Can you speak to feeding in the crate? We found it helpful for her, and they're talking about Lucy, to gain some love for the crate, but struggled with her becoming a little bit protective of food, and now they have to overcome that. Now, those are sort of two separate things. Dealing with some possessiveness over food is a little bit different than dealing with feeding in the crate, and one shouldn't create the other. But it is a great idea to feed your dog their meals in the crate because, as Dan mentioned in that, or Ellen mentioned in that comment, it really does build that like sense of, the good things come from the crate.
Maybe they get one meal a day in the crate and they get the other meal outside of their crate where she's having to work for the food, so that she's having to use her brain. I know your puppy a little bit, so the whole protective of the food thing, she's being a little bit of a bossy boots. I don't think that she's got bad bones in her body. I think that she's just a little puppy that's being pushy, and so she just needs to be directed a little bit more persuasively to not be such a monkey.
Right.
But I think you guys have been working through that, so that's fantastic. But we highly suggest for people who are especially trying to introduce a crate to a dog or get them comfortable with it, feeding the puppy in the crate, because it really, really helps.
Mm-hmm. And we'll touch on this just for the last moment here. Madison asked, what would be the situation with having to bring a younger puppy with you travel-wise while crate training? This could be especially helpful, especially to
This is my least favorite part of having a puppy when I go to competitions, because when my dogs get older, I can usually transfer them to like a soft-sided crate or like material type crate.
When they won't try to get through it.
Yes, but when you have a puppy, I lug my plastic crates around everywhere and it's so annoying. However, it's also really helpful because when I have a plastic crate, I can ensure that the dog is learning to be quiet. I can cover the crate if I'm in a stimulating environment. My puppy's also not learning to break out of the crate when I'm in the ring with another dog. And also in a hotel room, I want to make sure that if I'm, going to be in the hotel room, my dog's not going to break free in the middle of the night and, wreck everything. So definitely you're going to have to lug that harder sided crate around initially with a young puppy and in the car as well. And then eventually, once the puppy gets a little bit older, we started using a soft-sided crate initially with our young dog just in the house with us so that we could watch her and manage her. And it was after she was completely house-trained and wasn't chewing anything in our house.
Yeah.
I think she was actually probably not even, I think she was like a year old when I put her in a soft-sided crate. And when I did, I was like, are we ready for this? And luckily, she was really good.
Yeah, so I just sort of, sprung my mind about potty training. And
sprung my mind.
One of the things that I'm often answering questions about, if you feel like, boy, my dog is struggling with potty training and will go outside and they'll go pee or whatever, and they come back inside and they sneak away and they have an accident. There's always two things that you can sort of check on for the puppy potty training. Are they getting too much freedom? And the time that they are free, are they being supervised? Because puppies will, it's especially this time of year, and I don't know where you're watching from, but here in Canada, it is cold. It's snowy and blowy and icy.
I don't want a puppy right now.
So I'm much happier to use the washroom inside than to go use an outhouse. And your puppy can feel the same way, when they go outside, especially if they don't understand the differences. They'll happily pee in the house if they have an opportunity to. So make sure you're supervising them. Now, this brings us to outside of crate training. What about like young dogs, puppies being up on the furniture, that kind of freedom? Well, how do you feel about that? Or is there like a defining line for you where you say, this puppy has earned the right to be on the couch with us, or this puppy has earned the right to hang out in the living room with us?
Yeah, we sort of spoke about this earlier. It's something that all dogs will sort of be given differently depending on how they're doing. We definitely do recommend in the beginning to limit your dog's access to getting up on the furniture and up on the bed. And then you can offer those luxuries up to your dog if you want. Like some people don't want their dogs on the bed or on the couch ever. And that's absolutely doable. You can train your dog to have those boundaries, no problem. You can train your dogs to be able to get on some couches and not on others. Like, these dogs are brilliant. They really can learn. They can learn anything. So it's really just up to you about that. But if you are having any issues with your dogs being disobedient or disrespectful or bratty, I would seriously consider taking away the privilege of the bed and the couch.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that if we get asked, or when I get asked that question, I often sort of refer to, does the puppy listen? Do they
get off the moment you ask them
if you ask your puppy to get off of the ottoman or the couch or the chair or whatever,
and
they
get
listen?
Off like on their own, opposed to like you having to pull them off.
Yeah,
Like
like
if you say, hey, off, well, they get off right away.
Yeah.
And if they aren't really listening, or if they're growling at you when you go to sit down and stuff, that dog should not be up on that couch.
Yeah. The moment that puppy starts listening, then they've earned the right. It's a privilege to be up on the couch, whether you're watching TV or, you know, maybe you're hanging out in the living room and they just want to go up there on their own. But it really is a privilege, and it's something that is earned by your puppy. So it's really important that you manage that really well. To lead us to so many people ask, like, is it okay if my puppy or our young dog sleeps in the bed with us? Exact same rules apply. Does your dog understand? Has your dog earned the right or the responsibility to be allowed to be up there? I know there's sort of like different schools of thought on the idea with the dog sleeping in the bed with you.
But I think what people need to remember is that, like, they look at what they have to sacrifice for a puppy, and they think that that's how it's going to be the dog's entire life, and that's not the case. These suggestions that we're giving you are specifically for puppies and young adolescent dogs that don't know the run of the show yet. Once your dog understands where all these things lie, you know, the 5 months that you don't, or 8 months or 1 year that you don't let your dog sleep in your bed, you have 11 more years where they can sleep in the bed with you. So this isn't a lifelong commitment that we're asking you to or suggesting to you to do. This is a short time, and that, you know, some of my older dogs, I can't even remember them as a puppy now because it was so long ago. Like I just think about what their life is now, and I'd forget about what naughty things that they did as puppies because it was just so long ago. That was such a small phase in their lifetime.
I'm so glad we took the pictures and the videos.
Yeah.
Like, it's so nice to have those
Funky
things.
was the cutest puppy on the face of this earth.
She was pretty cute.
Oh, she's still so cute now.
An adorable dog. I see Daryl mentions in the chat. I didn't want to miss the opportunity, Daryl, and I saw that you had mentioned that. Becky Parker, one of our online training students with My Dog Can, mentions, I just wanted to stop in briefly and say, in honor of U.S. Thanksgiving, I'm super thankful of these live streams, YouTube videos, and My Dog Can, which is our...
That's nice.
Thank you very much, Becky. It's so great to have you here. My Dog Can is our online training, so if you want to train with us personally, then you can check out the link in the description below. We have an online training program where you get to train with us. There's 9 weeks of classes, as well as dealing with walking on a loose leash, sit and stay, come when called, as well as all kinds of other behaviors that you might be working on right now with your puppy. Go ahead with that comment if you're ready. So Dan and Ellen Luton mentioned we find the hardest time to keep that freedom under control is when friends and family are over. Everyone loves a puppy. It's been hard sometimes to say no, even if we know it's the right decision.
So true.
It's so true. Absolutely. But these are sort of the things where
when people come over, or even like walking down the street and you have a puppy, people just get like these squeaky, high-pitched voices.
Yeah.
The moment they see a puppy, and it just makes our life a lot harder. But
absolutely. And these are sort of the things, and we've talked about this in previous live streams and in some videos. Sometimes you've got to be just a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Gruff? I don't know. Abrasive? Direct, I guess. Yeah. When you're working on this puppy stuff, because it's for the good of your puppy. So there's been times when we'll be out for, maybe we're traveling or something. We have a dog or a couple of dogs on leash, and someone will say, "Oh, your dogs are adorable. Are they friendly? Can they meet my dog, or can my dog meet them, or whatever?" And we will 100% of the time say no.
Nah.
Yeah, no, it's just not good, especially for you guys with a young puppy in training. It's just undoing all your hard work. Now, there will come a time when they can go hang out and they can go, visit other dogs that you know, and all of these things. But that's long after you've established that when you call, they come to you. You know, that they will sit and wait on a loose leash beside you. You know, you sort of have to have all these checks and balances before you allow them that sort of freedom or to make those kinds of decisions, because your puppy is going to find that really gratifying.
We find it a good idea, if you are having people come over with your dog, is have the puppy or the dog in their crate for the first couple minutes until everybody gets in the house.
Yep.
And like the excitement of people arriving has sort of settled a little bit, because that stimulation can sometimes be just too hard of an environment initially for the dog to be able to make any good choices, because they're just so ramped that it's like, it's just not going to be successful. So, you always can control the dog's environment by removing them from it if you need to, or getting them further away from it. So rather than letting them get like right at the door and getting their head like poking in everywhere, have somebody on with the dog on the leash, like back, away from the door a little bit so that they can see the excitement, but they can't like get right into the hustle and bustle. And then work some control exercises. We teach a controlled sit at our left-hand side where the dogs learn to be calm and to be well-minded. And then once they're settled, you could let them go and greet from there, but greet on leash. So if they decide to jump up or, nip at people's hands or whatever they do when they're excited, you have the leash to address those issues, opposed to just sort of letting everything go free willy and hope that it goes well. And, if the situation is too overwhelming and your dog is not making good choices, you need to be able to pull the plug and say, okay, this is not good rehearsal. I've been working my butt off and I can see things unraveling before me. Yeah. I need to address this and get the puppy out of the situation.
Yeah, when we talk about the effort that's invested in training your puppy, you work so hard for them to make good decisions. You work so hard to like reward them at the right time and for them to do the things that you want them to do in a moment. Those things can all be undone. I'm thinking it specifically about, some of these social situations with dogs in like a dog park, where someone has a dog who a well-trained dog, loves to listen. They go to the dog park, they have a negative experience with maybe an aggressive dog or whatever the situation is, and it just changes everything. So really be mindful of those social experiences that you put your dog through. They're so very important. Now, with that said, if you have any final questions, drop them in the chat. I think we dropped a lot of nuggets of wisdom here in terms of puppy management. This answered a lot of the questions that people have been asking in things like our potty training videos or our puppy training basics, the other videos with like using the house line. Now, let us know in the chat if you are going to be using a house line or you are going to be using your crate a little bit more after this train station episode.
And structuring your dog's day to set them up more for success rather than letting them get easy failures because it's just too easy of an opportunity to make poor choices.
For sure.
You want to be a good dog trainer.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really what you're being. And that's what we're helping you to be, is to be a better dog trainer for your dog.
Your dog will thank you for it.
Absolutely. And, they'll want to listen. They'll do all the things that we talk about. And, it's probably, I remember as a student or when I went to watch some of the McCann dog shows before I was a student, I remember thinking, that is incredible how much the dogs just pay attention to their owners. It's so amazing. But when you're on the inside as a dog trainer, you start to really see the differences. The people that with good reward timing who build, a dog who loves to work with all of the tricks and tips that we've talked about here.
I just see that question coming in and I'm just going to answer it generally. One of the things that I was thinking about is another thing in regards to freedom is, freedom with a dog. If you have multiple dogs or if your dog is around other dogs, whether it's a puppy socialization class or doggy daycare, leash-free park, or whether you have multiple dogs. We have lots of dogs in our house, and we spend a lot of time initially separating the young dogs from the young puppy from the older dogs. And we do that so that we can develop a really strong bond between ourselves and the puppy. Now, on top of that, though, puppies need to be socialized. They need to be out and about, and they need to see new places. They need to hear new sounds. They need to see new people. They need to, see other dogs for sure. But it doesn't necessarily mean you need to go to the closest dog park, let them off leash, and let them bomb around for a half an hour and let them completely forget that you exist. So what I try to do, I do let my puppies play with other people's puppies, but I sort of jokingly but very seriously say this, I pick my dog's friends wisely. So the dogs that I allow my puppies to interact are dogs that I know personally myself. I can say for a fact that they would be a good match for my puppy. So they're going to match my puppy in a way that they will build my puppy's confidence and not, make her be worried or overwhelmed or make her let her be a bully. Also, I need to make sure that the match is there. But the amount of time that I do that is going to be very, very minimal. because the most important thing that I want to do is teach my puppy to be really into me. And what I always love is when I get to the point that I'm starting to let my young dog interact with my older dogs more often, is when I get to the point where they're all hanging out and I go to leave and that young puppy says, "Where are you going?" And they want to trail with me and they want to be close, and they're comfortable and not caring about leaving all of their buddies to choose to be with me without me even asking. Then I really can see, okay, we have a great bond and I don't have to be quite so worried about, that happening. So, you do need to socialize your puppy for sure, but puppy socialization, play classes, they're not necessary. There's all kinds of ways that you can socialize your dogs without needing to do that. And there's a time and place for it.
I think this brings up a really important point that we should touch on is puppy socialization isn't limited to the interaction between puppies and other puppies. Puppy socialization means interaction with people, sounds, smells, places, things. I mean, that's really how you can build, a solid, thorough socialization experience for your puppy. So, don't think that you need your dog to be nose to nose with another dog.
And the fact that you're coming to grade, I know you guys are in grade 1. The fact that you're coming to grade 1 every week, that's you're socializing your dog right there. Being in class and having them nearby the other dogs and learning to be respectful. Being in the back room after class when we do our question and answer period, you're in a tight place and the dogs have to learn to be with you. That's another style of socialization. So it's happening all the time.
That's a really important point, and that's something that we do with our grade 1 students. Is at the end of every class, everyone comes into our classroom, which is a little bit smaller.
It's almost the hardest part of class for some people.
It can be, for sure, yeah. But it's there's not a ton of space. It's just like a vet's office, like a large vet's office, and that's on purpose.
Yeah.
We want you to have to sit down and work with your dog and reward them for making good choices, but you need to give them the opportunity to make those choices, and that's the kind of socialization experience that's really valuable, because you're the one that's paying out. Your dog sees you as someone who can bring good things even when all these other exciting animals are around. So it's so very, very important.
Totally.
But with that said, I thank each and every one of you who have joined us here at the train station. That was a good toot.
Your wrist cracked when you did that.
Oh, did it?
Yes.
That's because I was getting so excited. I need to find I gotta get a t-shirt made with me holding up a glowing train whistle. I thought that would be funny. Kind of like, I'm not a superhero guy, but I do like He-Man from the 80s. Do you guys remember He-Man from the 80s?
I wasn't born yet.
Yes, you were. I have the power. I'm not that much older than her. Just a couple of years.
He actually is. He's a lot older than you.
Thank you guys for joining us here in the chat. As Becky Parker mentioned,
it is key to pick your friends in the room too.
Yes, it's very important. As Becky Parker mentioned, you can train with us at the My Dog Can program. There's a link in the description below. Join Becky there, and it's lots of fun, lots of training. If this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We publish new videos every single week to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member, and we jump down in the train station at least 3 times a month. And Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30 is when you can catch us. And we want to thank you guys for joining us today. On that note, we will talk to you guys soon. And I'm going to wish you happy training. Bye for now, guys.